Well, hey everybody, this is Jackson at Celebration Bar Review, I wanted to do this video today for a couple of reasons. There have been some interesting things happening that made me think about a bigger context, and I thought it would be useful for you if you're a bar taker or thinking about being a bar taker. Earlier this week, we put together a closed Facebook group for bar takers and former bar takers and thinking about being bar takers, and we'll put a link up here for you so that you can see it, but we called it the Extra Mile because we wanted to go the extra mile and provide some additional resources for people that were thinking about taking the bar exam. And so as part of the promotion of the Extra Mile, this Facebook group, I sent an email to everyone on our email list, which included, of course, former students. And the response was absolutely amazing to me. I mean, we added 75 members to the group within an hour, and people are still signing up like crazy, which is great. It's very exciting. And I knew when I sent it out that there would be a few people who would be not happy. And sure enough, I got an email back from an unnamed student. I mean, I know who it is, but the student wrote back, kind of all in caps, and said, "I used your course, I didn't pass!" Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And I had two reactions. One is, I'm really sorry. The other part is, yeah, it's our bad because clearly our course doesn't work and everything else you did succeeded. But that was a little snarky of me, so I just kept it to myself, of course, until this moment. But I didn't send them that message. But it got me to thinking about the real point I want to talk about today, which is that for any course to work, I think there have to be two pieces in place. The first is content, and the second is context. Content and context. Let me explain what I mean by that. Content is the how-to. It's how to write an essay. It's how to study successfully in knowing the law. It's how to apportion your time. It's how to manage your emotions. It's how to do all of the things you have to do in order to pass the bar exam in whatever jurisdiction you're in. Now, I think that our course does a pretty good job, and frankly, after 25 years in this space, I think I've probably earned the right to be considered a leader or a thought leader in this. And so the quality of our materials, the content of our materials, I think is absolutely second to none, and I think our pass rate proves that. But the important point is that the content is totally worthless, I think, if you don't understand the context of it. And what I mean by context is that if you don't have the framework or the paradigm of the bar exam that we're using, then the content isn't going to make much sense to you. Here's an example. The context of the bar exam, as I see it, is that the essays are designed to not test what you can memorize, but they're designed to test how you use the law that you know in the service of arguments on both sides of a dispute. Now, if contextually you buy into that approach, if you think, yeah, that makes sense, the examiner certainly wouldn't be asking if I can be the Wikipedia of the law here, if I can memorize a lot of things, then the content of how you write an essay, writing about what's in dispute, for example, instead of issue spotting and memorizing and reciting rules, suddenly makes a whole lot more sense. And the students who are successful and have been successful in our course over the years are the ones that seem to integrate the context of what we're teaching along with the content. Now, is my context the only context that's appropriate? Absolutely not. If you're taking one of the big box bar reviews, they have a particular context for the exam, and their context is exactly the opposite of mine. Their context is, yeah, the test is all about how much stuff you can cram in your brain and spit it out on test day, and given that context, their content is, we're just going to feed you more information and more information and more information until you're drowning in information, but at least you've got it because we think that's what's important on the test. Now, besides the fact that our pass rate for 20 years has been about double theirs in just about every jurisdiction, I understand that there's a distinct difference in those two approaches, but I don't think that students always grasp that. Sometimes a student will come into our course and they'll say, well, why do I have to go through the introductory materials? Or why do I have to learn about what you think the examiners are doing on the multi-state or in an essay or with a performance test? And my answer is usually the same. If you understand the context that we're talking about, that will guide the way you use the content that we're talking about and providing for you. You see, if you understand that a multiple choice multi-state question is not an effort to trip you up or trick you or to test some really obscure little nuance of a tiny element, then you're going to study differently and you're going to approach the answer of the problem differently than if you think that's the context that's going on. So my challenge to you today is that as you think about content and context, see if they are consistent with one another. If they are, your studies are going to do pretty well. If they're inconsistent, if you're in one context but trying to add different content, then you're going to find yourself constantly frustrated and sort of at odds with the work that you're doing. And like that student who came back and said, your course didn't work. Well, it didn't work because that particular student, who I knew, never bought into the context. They tried to take our content and fit it into a context in which they thought what they were supposed to do was just blurt out as many rules as possible. And when our content approach, our how-to approach, didn't give them that, then it didn't work. I hope that makes sense. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. But I invite you to really give some thought as you're studying now, or as you begin your studies, to think about the context of your study and the content of your study, and make sure that they're working together harmoniously instead of against each other. Well, thanks for your time. Look forward to hearing from you, and good luck on your exams.